Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to give it about 30 more seconds and we'll get started. Welcome. So excited to have you today. Welcome, welcome. Well, I'm excited to welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Mike Fye. I'm the Mentor Indiana Director here at Indiana Youth Institute, and so excited to have you all joining us today and to celebrate National Mentoring Month. So excited to have everyone join us to celebrate Mentoring Month and have this mentoring topic as well. So we're going to share our screen here real quick. Get everyone started. Excellent. Okay, well, we're happy to get started here with our webinar today through the Indiana Youth Institute, the 5 practices of the caring mentor. And so grateful to have you all here to connect as a community of Indiana youth workers who remain committed to meeting the needs of our youth and children. And for those of you who are not familiar with IYI, our mission is to improve the lives of all Indiana children by strengthening and connecting the people, organizations, and communities that are focused on kids and youth. Listed here, you can see our vision that drives the work we do for Indiana youth. And before we begin, we'd like to share a few pointers that will help you engage with today's webinar. For any technical support issues, use the chat feature to send a message, and I or an IYI team member will assist you. Use this feature to converse with the group as well, to ask questions, so please use the Q&A feature for any you may have, and we will get to as many as possible. Dr. Shapiro will set some time aside in the last few minutes to answer some of those questions, so I'll be monitoring those if you can add your questions throughout the webinar here. And feel free to also upvote great questions to the top. Now, later today, you will receive an email with a link to complete an evaluation of this webinar, as well as the presentation slides. So please take a few minutes to let us know your thoughts about today's presentation. And if you don't receive the evaluation email, please check your junk email as it may have been directed there. Once you have completed the evaluation, you'll be redirected to your certificate of participation. Like all of IYI's webinars, today's webinar will be posted on our website if you'd like to revisit a portion later or share the opportunity to listen in with your peers. So with that, I'm so excited to turn it over to our speaker for today, Dr. Shapiro.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. And I'll share my screen here. All right. Can everybody see the screen? Okay, perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. A big thanks to Mike and Josh and the IYI team. It's truly an honor to be here. So I always want to start off with a thank you because the greatest gift in my experience that you can ever give someone is your time. And we have this hour here together. And when I reflect on that, I think about what's going to happen during this time. It'll have a beginning, it'll have a middle, it'll have an end. Will something meaningful happen? Will something loving happen? Something authentic? Will there be lasting value that we give to each other that will help you become everything you can be as a mentor and give your best to kids in a way that changes their lives? So that's my commitment. I'm excited, honored, and I'm going to give you everything I have for this next hour for the purpose of us bringing out the best in each other to bring the best out in the kids that we serve. And there's no finer organization to do this than the Indiana Youth Institute. And I've really, really enjoyed and admired the work and seen the impact that it's had on kids' lives. So, welcome. The goal today is I'm going to share my research, which has been done over many years. And it's come down to 5 research-based practices that my goal is for you to integrate and take into your heart and let it become a part of your mentoring so you can continue to build on the great work you're already doing with kids. So the first thing with mentoring and so many connections is to tell a little bit about myself because we know when we work with our mentors or when we work with each other, we want to have something to connect to because it's all about connection. So you can see me there on the side, Danny Shapiro, as my friends call me, and I hope you'll call me Danny too. There's my father, who's the original storyteller. I grew up in a house of stories between him and my uncle. My mom, who is a scientist, and they're both retired now. That's my wife, Mandy, who's a kindergarten teacher. That's my son, Ben, who we went to Indiana for the conference, and he said that was his favorite trip. And he was shooting baskets, and he met some guys out there, and he just had a great time. And there, of course, is my daughter, Mila, and you can tell she's in the theater. So she's an actress, and she's posing. And my day job is I work at Broward County Public Schools. I'm the school counseling director. So I have 226 schools, and our job is to make sure each of those schools has a great school counseling program. And I also work with the mentoring here in Broward. And a little bit about me is I've loved mentoring my whole life. It started in Little League where my coaches started taking me under their wing, and I just looked up to them and learned so much from them. And then movies, seeing The Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi, seeing Star Wars and Yoda, and just really, really loving this idea that a more experienced person can guide someone along the way and help them see good qualities in themselves that they may not have known and help them express those qualities in the world and help them become everything they can possibly be. And so my whole life, I looked for a mentor like that. So I'd be a little kid in the supermarket with my mom, and I'd be looking around the corner, hoping there'd be a little old man or little old lady with the wisdom that could show me everything, the secrets about this world and how to be the best I could be. And I learned in my journey that I had many great mentors along the way, but ultimately I had to become the person that I was seeking. And that was a big insight for me is what was I seeking in this mentor? And how could I learn to find those qualities in myself and develop them and share them with others? And my life has been devoted to that. And then speaking. My goal, my love is to speak from my heart to your heart. Words that come from the heart enter the heart. And when I look back on my life, God willing, I'll be 100-year-old man looking back. Mentoring and speaking to groups just like this are going to be what I'm so proud to have done and what are so meaningful to me. So for me, it starts with family and then discovering my own qualities and sharing them and then helping other people. I wrote the book, The 5 Practices of the Caring Mentor, which was based on my dissertation. And this dissertation was, well, I'll tell the quick story here. So this dissertation was a long, 200 and some odd page academic dissertation. And what I did was when my dissertation chair said to me, when you do your dissertation, do something that you absolutely love because that's what you'll become an expert on. That's what you'll be sharing the rest of your life, studying the rest of your life. So I knew for sure I wanted to do mentoring and specifically, what role does caring play in mentoring? Because throughout my whole life, the people and situations and things in life that meant the most to me were ones surrounded by care. when I could really tell someone cared about me or someone else, or when I really cared about someone. That's what was most meaningful and real and what was in my heart. So, what role does caring play in mentoring relationships became the question that I lived with. So, I did many individual interviews, in-depth interviews. Mine was about educators, and then I expanded it to all kinds of mentors to listen to mentors and mentees about what does caring mean to you? How is caring expressed and how is it received? What are the ways in which caring can be expressed effectively and powerfully in a way that really lands and changes people, not just as a momentary conversation, but something that they integrate into their being and it becomes part of who they are, that love, that care that's shared. And I did focus groups and I got mentors together, mentees together, and I just devoted my whole self to exploring what is caring and how can we care about each other through mentoring. And I analyzed documents and went through all of the research. And in the end, I came up with five practices. So the five practices are the distillation of this research, and then my book is stories, as I'll tell to you today. Which, as I said, I grew up and love stories. So I'll tell stories for each of the practices, and by the end, you'll walk away and you'll have these stories and these practices in your heart to share. So I'm going to go back to this slide because I'm going to tell a quick story that's really the essence of this. It's the foundation of this. So once there was a gifted teacher, and that gifted teacher had an absolutely brilliant class. So every time he would create an assignment, 5 minutes, the class would have it done. And he could never get a break because every time he came up with something great, they got it done, and then he had to come up with something else. So he really thought about it. And one day he was flipping through one of those oversized magazines and he saw a map of the world just like this. So he had a great idea. He tore it into shreds, hundreds of pieces, scattered it across the table, and he said, "Class, put the map back together." So he sat back at his desk. He kind of had a satisfied smile. He opened the sports section. He said, "Finally, I'm going to have an opportunity to rest and a little bit of time here." Um, he was surprised that in about 5 minutes, it's coming together, and all of a sudden, the whole map is perfectly, seamlessly put back together. So he is shocked. He calls the students over to him and says, "How in the world did you do this?" And one of the brightest students said, "Well, we flipped the shreds over and we saw that on the back of them was one human being on the other side of the page. And when we put that human being back together, the whole world was put back together." And the reason I tell this story is because caring and mentorship, it happens one relationship at a time, one interaction at a time, and most importantly, one human being at a time. That human being that you're mentoring, it's an honor to do that. And they're the most important person in the world right at that time when you're mentoring them. So it's one human being at a time. So I want us to keep that in our heart that everything we're learning, it gets applied in the space between people in relationship, which is such a sacred, precious thing and an honor to be in that position as a mentor. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go to the first practice. Is everybody doing well? Are you having a good time? I can't see everybody, but can you give a thumbs up if you're hearing well and it's coming along? Okay, beautiful. All right, we're here together. So the first practice through all the research is listen actively. And not only listen actively, but listen authentically. And I'll tell a quick story about this. So the joy of my life is my wife, Mandy, and our two kids, Mila and Ben. I've been married now for 20 years, so we had our 20th anniversary. And one day when I was a teacher at the time, we woke up on a Saturday morning. We're both relieved from the teaching, all the busyness of teaching, and the sun's coming through the window, and we're just kind of waking up. And Mandy says, "Danny, I had this dream." And I leaned toward her and said, "What was it?" And I could see she was really touched. She had water in her eyes. And she said, "Well, I dreamed of this country home." So it was this white country home, and it had dogwood trees on the side with pink blossoms that were bursting like fireworks. It had pillars and a wraparound porch so we could sit outside. It had rolling hills in the background, a beautiful blue sky, flower beds, and it was the most real. It was realer than this, Danny. And I could see she was super touched by this. So I just, my whole being was listening to her because I knew she was sharing what was so important to her. And I asked her questions, and I could just see exactly what that dream was alive in my own mind. And in that moment, my wife and I were deeply connected. So the day went on, and basketball practices and going to theater and all those things kept, but this dream stayed in me, this house. So I thought to myself, I wonder if I could find someone to paint it. And I live in the Fort Lauderdale area in Southeast Florida. So I said there was an art show near the beach. So I said to myself, I'm going to go to that art show. I'm going to see, is there a painting that's similar to this by chance? And if not, maybe I could ask someone to paint it for me. So that's exactly what I did. I went out by myself, didn't see anything like this. Asked a couple of people to if they could paint it for me, and they gave me a price which was more than I think the house would have been. So I knew that wasn't possible. And then I remembered that there was an administrator at my school named Mr. Bell. Mr. Bell was a ex-football player. He was about 6'2". He was a linebacker, and he was like the school's enforcer. So I remember that he had said when he introduced himself when he first came aboard on at our school that he was a painter. So I was a little nervous, but I went after school and knocked on his door and said, Mr. Bell, my wife had this dream. And I kind of braced myself like he's going to think I'm crazy. And I told him all about it. And I said, I'd love to learn how to paint it if you would teach me. So he paused and he said, I'd love to do that, Danny. So every day we went into the art room after school and he showed me this whole process of oil painting. The way that you fill the canvas with paint and then you layer over it to get the sky and the whole thing is blue and then you start painting the house over it. So he's showing me how to do this and for several weeks we're painting together and we develop a great friendship. Now, the painting was basically me painting a house or a tree, messing it up, and him fixing it. That was how it went. But at some point, the painting got finished. A friendship was made. And just as I had listened to Mandy, Mr. Bell had listened to me. I didn't know what to expect when I started talking with him, but I noticed his full attention was on me. I could see that he respected me. I could see that what I was saying mattered. I could see that he was invested. And kind of like the woman on the screen, just this leaning forward and seeing attention and respect being given by the way he was listening to me. And he listened so much that we were able to reproduce this image for my wife. So I go back home and I tell my wife to sit on the bed where we were, and I bring out a chair and ask her to close her eyes, and I bring in the painting and I cover it up with a towel. And I said, honey, do you remember the morning that you told me about the house? Do you remember the dogwood trees with the pink blossoms, the white house, the pillars, the wraparound porch, the flower beds, the rolling hills? And she's like, yeah, what are you getting at, Danny? And I said, open your eyes. And this was the painting. And I told Mr. Bell, put your name above mine, and I'm just going to put my initials because you are the artist here. And I'm just the husband. So this was the painting, and my wife said it was the most meaningful gift she ever received, and it was the most meaningful gift I ever gave. Not because there's anything special about me. In fact, I messed this up pretty much at every turn. It was Mandy's dream, and there was Mr. Bell's artistry. What I did is what we all can do is I listened. I listened not only to the words, but I listened to the feeling and the meaning and the dream behind it. And then I acted on it. So the first practice, the fundamental practice of being a caring mentor is listen authentically with your whole heart. Put everything else aside and listen fully with your whole being to your mentee, what they're saying, the way they look, what they're feeling, what's underneath the surface. And that in itself does a couple things. One is it shows deep respect for the mentee, that child in front of you. They know without you even saying anything how much that they matter to you and how much you respect them because you're taking the time to fully listen. And then secondly, the only way to truly help someone is to get to know them. Not what you think they need, but what they actually need. And the only way to know that is by deep listening. And one of the most beautiful things in the world, and I can see you right now listening, is a person listening to another human being. That's when love can be exchanged. So the first practice is listening. All right, everybody with me? Okay. So now we're going to go to the second practice. So the second practice is instill safety. If we don't create a safe environment for our kids that we're mentoring, they're either going to withdraw from us, they're going to fight us and be in conflict with us, they're going to tell us what they think we want to hear. It's only when they are in a safe environment when they know that they can be themselves and get to the real issues about what's going on. So you've got to create safety. When I'm in a workshop, what I usually do is I'll have one person close their eyes and everyone has a partner, and we'll walk across the room, and the guide will guide the person, and I'll create obstacles, and we'll go all the way to the end. And at the end, each person will get a turn to walk a long way through these obstacles with their eyes closed, which is terrifying for some people. And I'll say, "What helped you through it?" And they'll say, "The person was talked to me in a gentle voice. They let me know they were there. They gave me guidance. They let me know what was in front of me. They encouraged me about how far we'd come." And these things are what instill safety, is not judging, being there to guide, being there with unconditional support. As Carl Rogers said, unconditional positive regard. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with every behavior that your mentee does. Part of mentoring is correcting those behaviors, but them as a person. It's not the you that I have an issue with. It's this behavior because I know you can improve on it. I know it's not the healthiest behavior for you. But there's this unconditional caring for. So you got to create a safe environment. As I told you, my father was the original storyteller. So I'm going to tell you my favorite story that my dad told me growing up. So you can maybe get an example of the stories that I grew up with and the way my dad told them. So I'm doing this to honor him and honor you with the story. So my dad grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. He was born in 1940. And when he was between 10, 11 years old, his father took him out for an outing and they were at a bus stop. Now, my dad was a mischievous kid, to say the least, a jokester, and he still is. He's super funny. He would switch people's lawn furniture around, their porch furniture. So they'd wake up and there'd be they'd have someone else's furniture. He would throw stalactites out of napkins and paper clips up onto the ceiling in his school. In the restaurant, he would undo the salt shaker. People would pour it. So he was just a very mischievous kid, always looking for trouble. So they're at the bus stop, and I can see my dad there, and I see it in black and white. He's there with his father. His father's in a suit. He's got slick back hair. He's got a fedora on. My dad's in one of the 50s white t-shirts with jeans and his Converse All-Stars. And they're sitting on a hot Columbia day, waiting for the bus. So my dad sees one of these old-fashioned Coke machines like you have here, where you drop your dime in there, um, and it clinks down, and a paper cup comes out, and then ice comes out, and then the Coke comes out. So he asks his dad, my grandpa, for a dime. He gets it. He walks over in that dusty bus stop and clinks it into the slot. Cup comes down and he gets himself a drink. And then he has a brilliant idea. If he reaches his hand up in there and crushes the next cup, then the next person who gets a drink is going to get a big messy surprise. So that's exactly what he did. So he crushes the cup and he goes back and sits down next to his dad, my grandpa. And my grandpa just sits there with him. And then my grandpa slowly gets up and he walks over to the Coke machine. And my dad is freaking out. he's seeing his father in slow motion, and his father didn't say a word. His father clinks a dime into the spot. The cup slowly goes down. My dad's just sitting there watching in suspense. The cup comes out, it's crumpled, it falls to the floor. The ice comes out and it starts going everywhere. The soda starts pouring, and the soda is going all over my grandfather's nice shoes and pants. So there's just a mess. There's a crumpled cup, there's ice everywhere, there's soda all over my grandpa's shoes. So my grandpa then walks back slowly to my dad and sits down with him, and in a minute the bus comes. So my grandpa holds my dad by the hand, takes him up to the bus. They sit down, and my grandpa just warmly puts his arm around him. And they go for the whole ride in silence. And my dad said, there's never been something my father or maybe anyone's done in my life that had more of an impact, because all I felt from grandpa, my dad, was just love. And at that moment, I said something to myself that I never forgot, and I've lived my life by it, is I never again want to crush another person's cup. Never again. And the story hit me like a ton of bricks because no words were said. My grandpa gave my dad a safe place to explore being himself and seeing what the consequences of his actions were. And I said, well, Dad, did he ever say anything? I mean, did he know that you did that? Was he trying to? And my dad said he never said a word about it. So I think, of course, he saw me, but I'm really not sure exactly what happened. All I know is I felt the impact of crushing someone else's cup and how it impacts someone. And my dad's one of the most thoughtful people imaginable. So you've got to create safety for kids to be themselves, for them to make mistakes, for them to be everything they are, and meet it with acceptance and meet it with love. And when you guide them and make corrections, you correct the behavior, but you don't make a judgment on the kid. The kid you give an unconditional positive regard, unconditional care, and then you work on the behaviors and let them know that. All right, so that's the second one. You guys with me? So we've got, if we were together in the room, I would say we've got listen authentically and instill safety. That's the second one. Okay, now we go to the third practice. All right, now the third practice is grow together. So I am now in my 29th year. You saw my picture on there. I looked a lot younger, and I'm 52. I'm 50 plus shipping and handling. So I'm now into my 50s. But I always looked really young. So my first job was actually a physical education teacher at the toughest school around here in Broward County. I went for the interview. I looked like I was about 12, and I'll never forget it was Miss Thurston, who was a stern but outstanding principal, and she's retired now. So I go in for the interview, and I was really prepared. I mean, I had answers for questions beginning, middle, and end. I had researched the school. I went through all my physical education books to do the theory, and I was really ready. I wore my best suit. So here I come in. I'm this 12-year-old kid. So the interview, I think it's going pretty well. She's asking me questions. I'm giving in-depth answers. I'm really rising to the occasion. But as I'm doing this, I'm looking at Miss Thurston, who's interviewing me, and she's kind of looking at me like, oh, that's really cute. Like, you're not going to get a job here, but very cute. And I could tell because it was a tough school, and I looked younger than a lot of the kids did. So I kind of get up and I'm walking out, and something told me to turn around. And I turned around and I said, Miss Thurston, if you give me a chance, I'm going to make you proud. And she kind of laughed, and I walked out. That night, I get a call, and she says, it's Miss Thurston. And she says, Danny, everybody deserves a chance. And I was hired for my first job in 1997 in Pompano, Florida, which is right here by Fort Lauderdale. So everything in my being wanted to prove Miss Thurston right. So I had a pressed white shirt. I went out and got a top shelf whistle, not just your plastic whistle. I got the best whistle. I polished it. I got a great clipboard. I studied physical ed. I was going to be the best PE teacher she's ever had. So I go there for the first day, and the class is fifth graders, many of which were retained, many of which were bigger than I was. But I was ready with all of my courage. fresh off out of college. And I get the lesson going. So the lesson is teaching them hula hoops, teaching them jump ropes, and teaching them basketball. So I taught them the skills, why these skills can help them, and I got them out into groups. And all of a sudden, the girls were hula hooping, the boys were playing basketball, and another group was doing some double dutch jump rope. So I'm walking around and I'm thinking, I did it. I mean, everybody's engaged. The girls are having a great time hula hooping. They're singing and doing double dutch. The boys are playing basketball. I start walking with my hands behind my back. I started saying things like, as you were, carry on. I was in charge and I was successful in my first day. So everything is going great. At the end of the hour, it's now time to clean up. So I say, all right, everybody, thank you. Great job. Let's put our equipment on the rack and let's get in line to go back in. So the girls put their hula hoops on the rack, just like you see in front of you. They drape their jump ropes over the edge of the holder there. But the boys keep playing basketball. So maybe they didn't hear me. I said, boys, let's get those basketballs in. Let's get in line. They still kept playing. So now the girls are looking at me like, Coach, what are you going to do? I mean, these boys aren't even listening to you. So I'm a young kid, so I kind of muster up all the bass in my voice and I say, boys, right now, I want you to take those basketballs, put them on the rack, and get in line. My sternest voice. So this got the attention of the ringleader. And the ringleader, he played for the Pompano Cowboys football team and he had his jersey on, number 56. I can still see. He looked like an NFL linebacker. So he puts the ball under his arm and he kind of steps toward me. And I hear the girls go, ooh. And I didn't know what to do. I'm like 21. So I stepped towards him. And then he stepped towards me again. And then I stepped towards him. And it was a showdown. So everybody's looking to see what's going to happen. So I said, I gathered up all my courage. I said, young man, right this second, take that basketball, put it on the rack, and get into line. So he looked me in the eye and he did a crow hop, if anybody plays baseball. And he launched his basketball up into the air. I still see it in slow motion with the blue sky behind it, and it bounces on the roof and dust puffs up. Then, before I could think, his friends take their basketballs and they throw them on the roof. And there's just basketballs flying, bouncing on the roof. The girls are screaming, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Then they go over and take the hula hoops. They throw those on the roof. Then they take the jump ropes and they throw those on the roof. So this is my first day. All the equipment's on the roof. The girls are saying, call Mr. Washington. He was like the campus security guard. So I call Mr. Washington on the radio. He comes and gets it set. And he gets him in the building. And then I kind of limped through the rest of my first day in 1997 as a teacher. So after school, I go to Miss Thurston's office. I knock at her door and I say, Miss Thurston, I had a bad day. I just want to apologize. And she said, Danny, of course you had a bad day. I mean, it's your first day. This is a tough school. You know, that's normal. I said, Miss Thurston, I don't think you understand. All of your equipment is on the roof. So she said, Danny, I'm not surprised. You can't just come in here and start teaching. You can't come in here and expect that people are going to listen to you just because you got a whistle around your neck. You got to build relationships. You got to get to know the kids and know them well. You got to show them you care. Correction without connection is rejection. I'll say it again. Correction without connection is rejection. You've got to connect with them. You've got to know what they're afraid of, what they dream of, what they're interested in. You've got to know them deeply, deeply. So I was inspired. I drove the long way home and I said, this is going to change me. So I started welcoming the kids and families in every morning. I started walking them out the back gate at the end of the day. I started going around the cafeteria and sitting down with kids and eating with them and getting to know them. I volunteered at the church. I became an assistant coach for the Pompano Cowboys football team. And I became a part of that community over 4 years. By the time a couple years had gone by, I never had a behavior issue in class. In fact, if someone new came in and they acted up, the other kids said, hey, that's Coach Shapiro. Don't mess with him. And I was able to teach. And in that, that's when I was inspired to start becoming a counselor. That was when I first did because I loved connecting with people. And that's when I became a counselor. So relationships are everything. Start with relationships, focus on the relationship, give them the respect of getting to know them, what they're afraid of, what they want, what they're going through, what they're interested in, what their passion is, what their history is. Become connected, and then you can teach. All right, we're going to go to practice number 4. Okay, so heightened understanding. Really quickly on this one is when after I graduated from college, my first goal was to go into sport management, and I went to Temple University where my uncle was a professor, and I I was just having a tough time up there. I didn't know anyone. It was kind of a new subject for me. I was young, trying to find my way in life, and I started having panic attacks. So those of you, some of you may know where you get this nervous feeling and your heart starts to beat, and then you start wondering if you're okay, and I would get these panic attacks. And one of the most difficult times in my life was that I had to come home. I felt like I had failed. I loved sports and I was excited to get my master's degree, and I just hit a wall. And I really, it's very important to me to share this story because so many times, you're speaking and, hearing about these good things. I really want you to know I was worried about my health. I was having panic attacks. I felt like I'd hit a wall and didn't know what to do. So I came back home feeling like I had failed. And I talked with my parents, I talked with friends, but nothing, I couldn't shake this feeling of having failed. And I was continuing to have these panic attacks and didn't understand why. So by my house is a park and there's a banyan tree there. And I found myself just wanting to climb that tree. That might sound a little bit strange. And I noticed that there were nails in the tree. Someone had put signs in there or just practiced. So there was all kinds of nails in there. And I just started taking the nails out of the tree. So when I took the nails out of the tree, over time, that became kind of my safe place. And then I just noticed nails around me. So I'd walk my neighborhood and there'd be a nail in the street, so I'd pick it up so someone didn't get a flat tire. Um, and the reason I share this story with you is because I had panic attacks, I started to study them. And I learned why people have panic attacks and how they get that feeling, and then how their mind contributes to it getting worse. And I would always just pick up nails to remember that. And I always loved banyan trees to remember that. Even though I'm 52, I'll still climb a tree and just as a place to rest. And this panic attack, which was a wound, became wisdom for me. The pain became power for me. And now I mentor other people and I help people who have panic attacks because I've been through that. So the wound that I had was something I could share with others and connect with others. And what I did through this process was I heightened my own understanding about what I was going through. And because of that, I was able to help other people understand. And so that's an opportunity for you in mentoring is when you sit across from that child, who knows what they're going through at home? Who knows the trials they've been through in their life? But because of the pain that you've gone through, and no one makes it this far without having gone through pain, because of the difficulties, the potential trauma that you went through, the wounds that we carry from difficult experiences, we can use those as a bridge to connect. And as they're going through something, because we've gone through it, we can help them see, no, you are a beautiful person. You are a great kid. This situation can turn around. For them, it feels like everything. But for us who are older and have more experience and have been through some of these ups and downs, we can give them perspective. So the third practice is to heighten their own understanding of themselves and their understanding of other people and their understanding of their life by giving them perspective. And most of the time, I found that that perspective comes from your own wounds. It comes from your own experiences, and usually not the ones that were easy. And it gives meaning to those experiences. So when you sit down with your mentee, help heighten their understanding about who they are and what their situation is. Lend your experience. And whenever you share, whenever you self-disclose you're always doing it for the kids' benefit. So we never want to be sharing, as if we're in our own therapy session. We want to share because I share this story with you because I want you to know I've been through difficult things. And I want you to know that you're not alone in what you're going through. And so you can self-disclose and use your experiences to help them. So the fourth is heightened understanding. The fifth practice is take action. So another great storyteller is my Uncle Ira. And you can see my brother Steve, who's a professor at the University of South Carolina in sport management. And then there's my Uncle Ira, the bald guy there. So a couple of ways to take action. So we've spoken about feelings, thoughts, connection, these things that happen between people. And now we're going to talk about concrete action. So when I was a kid, he would come down from Philadelphia with his family, so my two cousins and his wife. And every time he would see me after a year, he would say, Daniel, I'm so happy to see you. He'd give me a big hug. And it just filled me because I knew I was important to him. I knew I mattered to him. I knew he was truly excited to see me. And that made me feel good about myself. It made me feel a sense of belonging. And when I do sessions in person, I say that, imagine the airport where someone sees someone coming off the plane and hasn't seen them for a while, and they just give them such a heartfelt greeting, and they're so happy to see him. And I want everybody to do your best Uncle Ira impression. So I want you to find three people and greet them with all of your enthusiasm, all your warmth, kindness, and love. And the room usually explodes and people generate this kind energy and they greet each other and everyone's laughing. And I usually ask, do you feel more or less human now? And everyone says, I feel more human. And it's not, one time someone asked me, well, what if it's not authentic? What if you don't really feel that way? And I said to him, when you mentor someone, we have to be enthusiastic about seeing them. We have to find it in ourselves. And when I go through this activity, many people don't even know each other, but you can generate that because you're another human being, because you're coming to me for guidance, because you're trusting me with being a part of your life. I am happy to see you, and I'm going to do that. And I found it was transformative in my life when I see my wife, when I see my kids, when I see my dog, when I see my colleagues. I always greet them with enthusiasm because I never know when will be the last time I'll be greeting them. And it's an action, it's a concrete action I can do that is life changing. And as I said, I've been in the district for 28 years. My passion is speaking, and people see me all the time and say, Danny, how you doing? Uncle Ira. Hundreds of people because I've told the story. And so it's a power you have. So when you see your mentee the next time, greet them with enthusiasm, greet them with joy, greet them to let them know that you love to see them and match energy. Don't overwhelm them. Don't hug somebody, that doesn't want to hug, but show them, in a way that's helpful to them that you love them. Okay, another action. And I'm going to be winding down, and then we'll have 10 minutes or so for questions. Um, when I was in the district for a long time, and now I've been a district leader for 11 years. So I went from a school into the district office. So we have this big glass building that people call the Crystal Palace, which is in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And the day I got the job as a district leader, I'm driving down there and I think I had Bad Boys on the radio. Bad Boys, Bad Boys. I was really feeling myself. Wow, there's the skyline and I've made the big time. So I go in. There's a big security desk with the TVs behind it, and there's a woman there, and she's still there. Her name is Annette. She always wears a security windbreaker and she has big glasses. And I introduced myself to her, and she says, "Yep, your office is up on the 12th floor." So I go over to a bank of elevators and I go in. And as I'm going up, I notice that the elevator is glass. Um, and I look down and I see the whole city of Fort Lauderdale behind me, and I have a long ride. So no one was in there. So I put my hands up and I flew to the top and I kind of watched myself flying and seeing the city below me, and I'm laughing in there by myself. And then of course the doors open and I kind of put my hands down, pretend it wasn't happening, and I go into the office. I have a great first day. So I come home and I say, Mandy, you've got to see, you got to come to work. We got to do take your wife to work day because there is a glass elevator and it's like you're flying. So the next day is Tuesday. I go there and someone else is in the elevator. So I let them go to get my own elevator. And then when I get my own elevator, I go in there and I'm excited and I fly all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. Have another great day. I'm telling my family and friends, you guys got to do this. This is, you really feel like you're flying. So Wednesday comes, and this time people are in the elevator. I let them go up, but I'm really into it. I'm actually looking forward to getting to work just to do this. So this time I put down my briefcase and I raised my like one hand up and I put another hand on my hip and just go into full. I mean, I just went for it and I fly all the way up. So I come down for lunch and I'm passing the security desk and Annette, who I didn't know at the time, says, "Hey, Superman." I said, "What?" And my whole face turned red. And I just, I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, we've been watching you all week on the security cameras." That's when I learned that you're always on camera. And she said, "Honey, the first time, it was funny. The second time, people started gathering around the TVs, like, watch this guy, he's crazy." And she said, "But baby, when you put one arm up and the hand on you," she said, "I had to tell you, I couldn't take it anymore." So I am so embarrassed. I mean, I'm beet red. And I start walking away. And as I'm walking away, she says, "Hey, Superman." And I turn around and she says, "Don't ever lose that joy." And I never forgot that. And she's still there. And I say to you, life has brought me down to my knees in this world and still does. But when you can find joy in working with kids, when you can find that joy, express the joy, because if you're having fun mentoring, if you're enjoying mentoring, if it's a pleasure for you, it's going to be fun for that kid. And when we're having fun together, it opens the heart. And that doesn't mean that you're not going through a hard time. Hey, we've got to support each other. Sometimes it's an accomplishment just to get out of bed, just to take the next breath. It's hard times. That's why we've got to support each other as mentors. And the more we can have fun and enjoy it, the more our kids are going to enjoy it. So those are the practices. It's amazing how they say you can find something of your passion, something of your life when you were a kid. That's me at about 3 or 4 years old, and there's the Superman shirt. A funny thing is that I have a mentor, and when I told the story, she said, "You should submit this to Chicken Soup for the Soul." It sounds like a Chicken Soup for the Soul story. So I wrote it up and I sent it in, and 8 months later, it's in Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's called 101 Ways to Think Positive. So I don't get any money for it or anything. I mean, they pay you for the article, but I don't get money for sales. But so it's 101 stories. And what was really great is you got to meet the other authors on a Zoom call, and so it was fun to share that story. So here's what I want you to remember in your heart, and not just take it in as information, but let it become a part of you, because I've seen these practices work and I've seen them transform lives and I've seen them build connections. Is number one, listen actively, authentically. Listen with everything you have to show them how important they are and to learn about them so you can help them. Instill safety. Remember that correction without a connection is a rejection. Never reject them. Embrace them. Give them unconditional care and positive regard. That way they can be themselves and you can get to the real issues. Grow together. The most important times in their life won't be the times they're with us as mentors. It'll be the effect of what we do with mentoring. So when they leave us, the effect we've had on them. So we want them to grow. Always be looking through the lenses. How can I help this person grow? Like a gardener, nurturing the seed and helping it to become everything it can be. Heighten understanding. Remember the difficult things you've gone through in your life. You can use those to have compassion and wisdom for other people. And usually there's some gold in the difficult times you've gone through, and you can help them see their situation with more clarity and more perspective. And you can support them and let them know they're not alone. And then take action. Always translate that love, that care into actions that can make a difference. So this has been my honor to be with you, to have this time together. And I truly, truly honor you. And I really enjoyed it and hope you did too. And I want to send it back to Mike for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Shapiro. What a wonderful presentation and a joyful message. I think we could all use in this current age and to start the year. So appreciate you sharing such amazing stories as well and weaving that into mentoring. I think we could just sit and listen to your stories all day.
Thank you so much.
But we really appreciate you sharing. But would love to have if any folks would like to ask Danny here some questions. Feel free to add those into the chat here. And maybe while folks are thinking about questions they might have, one that I thought of that might be good for the group is any recommendations on how these youth workers might be able to share these practices with their volunteers, either is it through group training? Can they do this through one-on-one coaching? If they'd really like to implement these practices with their volunteers, what might you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're simple, but they're deep. And so yeah, you can take each one and practice them. So here's a few recommendations I have. So with listening, you can practice. So if we were together, one of the things we can do to practice listening is say, okay, so I'm partnered with Mike. Mike, I want you to tell me about your breakfast this morning or, your process of getting ready. And I'm going to listen with all I've got. And so you practice listening and then you repeat back to check for understanding. Okay, so Mike, you got up, you had some eggs and bacon, and your kids came and were showing you a dance, and you were still half awake, but you enjoyed the breakfast and laughed with your kids. And then Mike says, "Yeah, you were right on." And there was one other part, and so we work on listening, so we can practice that. With safety, you can do the walking blindfolded. Make sure it's an invitation. For some people, again, it's terrifying, but the process of you walking with someone and guiding them is a physical way of working on safety, and the insights you get from that are a good way to discuss safety. Growing together, you can have them set goals. You can have them talk about their strengths and areas they want to improve and make plans to do that. Heightening understanding, I think personal stories. So if you're working with your volunteers, you could tell a story from your own life and then give them time to journal and think about a story from their life. And how did they go from something difficult? For me, it was panic attacks to understanding that and then even making it a strength. How is that in your life? And then they can reflect on that in their life. So how understanding and helping our mentees understand. So that's one way of doing it. And then take action. You can brainstorm. What actions can we take for our mentees? Let's give some examples. What projects could we do with them? What hands-on help? So those are just some ways that you could, engage with those volunteers and around the five practices and have them discuss what those practices mean to them and how they can apply them. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, yes, very helpful. I know it's a long process building relationships and establishing that vulnerability, but I think these are really practical ways to kind of break the ice and get those things moving in the relationship. So I think a lot of practical tools that the group can take away, and I think myself and everyone else just feels inspired after
Oh, I'm
after
so
a great
glad.
message like that. Yeah, so thank you so much for your presentation. Any final questions? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Otherwise, we will switch over real quick here and just let you know about some upcoming events that we have. So I'm going to share that with you. Okay, so just a few updates and next steps after attending the webinar today. So our next webinars, you can see what's coming up in February. We've got a few great topics coming up that you can attend. So you can register for those on the IYI website. And then also, if you'd like to stay updated with the latest updates and opportunities through IYI, you can also sign up for our newsletter here as well. So, as we conclude, just want to thank you all for being with us today. We really appreciate your impact, voice, and choice to learn and partner with us here at IYI. And this afternoon, as I mentioned, you will receive an email that includes a copy of the presentation and a link to complete an evaluation of the webinar. So if you can just take a few minutes to let us know what you thought about today's presentation. And then, as we mentioned, upon completion, you'll get redirected to your certificate of completion once you do your evaluation there. If you didn't receive that for any reason, please check your junk email just in case it was directed there. So that will conclude our presentation for the day. And thank you once again, Dr. Shapiro, joining us today. Happy Mentoring Month and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.